The Michael Berry Show.
Musical chairs going on. When one office holder seeks another office, Ken Paxton running in the Senate race against John Cornyn, that opens up the Texas AG's seat, a position of great power and also a position that has launched a lot of other careers. Greg Abbott, of course, was the Attorney General before he was governor. That race has attracted a lot of attention, and it's going to be a spirited campaign. You've got State Senator Joan Huffman from the Houston area, a former judge. You've got Mays Middleton, a state senator, who has said he's putting $10 million of his own money and will put 10 more if it's needed. So you got to take that campaign seriously, just because that kind of money, if spent early enough, can build you some name ID. You've got Chip Roy, Congressman. Ted Cruz came out and endorsed him. He has been on Donald Trump's hit list for some things he said in January of 2021 as Trump was headed out the door. A lot of Republicans kicked Trump when he was down, and Chip Roy was certainly one of those. But Ted Cruz coming out and endorsing him certainly helps him. And you have Aaron Reitz. Aaron Reitz, well, you know what? Let's let him tell you. Aaron Reitz is our guest. Welcome to the program, Aaron.
Hey, Michael, happy to be here.
Why don't you take 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and first just talk about your career and how you ended up here.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Look, this is going to be a spirited campaign. I love the composition of the field. I love how this race has unfolded over the past few months. And I guess we'll start, look, when I most recently came from the Trump administration, having served as a presidentially appointed, Senate-confirmed head of the Office of Legal Policy at the Justice Department under Attorney General Bondi. And when the president nominated me back in December, he put out a statement saying that Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution. And the reason why he described me as a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution is because he knows, just like the voters in Texas know, that we need senior executive attorneys covered in battle scars who know how to fight in the lawfare environment in which we find ourselves. He needs, just like the voters in Texas need, a lawyer who has litigated, investigated, sued, defended, and appealed on all of the major issues that's going to restore integrity, transparency, and confidence into what has long been a broken and corrupted justice system. Now, what is that background that he looked at? Well, it goes all the way back to my time after having graduated college. I'm a proud Aggie. Went to Texas. I hope your listeners won't hold that against me, but I know you got some good Aggies that listen in. After my time at A&M, I was an officer in the Marine Corps, went to Afghanistan, deployed to the Northern Helmand Province, was on an embedded training team there in Helmand. And after my 5 years on active, went to the University of Texas Law School, president of the Federalist Society, editor-in-chief of the Texas Review of Law and Politics, clerked on the Texas Supreme Court for now Chief Justice Jimmy Blacklock, spent several years in private practice. And then in 2020, I joined Paxton as his Deputy Attorney General for Legal Strategy. And as Paxton always points out in anything really publicly that he says about me is, I was his offensive coordinator for the Biden years. He was our head coach. I was the offensive coordinator leading all of the major fights on behalf of the state of Texas against Biden, but not just Biden, also big tech, big pharma, school districts, election integrity inside the state. You name the issue, and I've led on it. I was then Ted Cruz's chief of staff before being elevated to the Justice Department. And when I left the Justice Department, you can find, this is all easily available online, your listeners can look it up, it's easy, or I can share it, is when I left the DOJ, it was very clear. I've got at least a dozen positive statements of encouragement from my former colleagues and bosses in the West Wing and at DOJ, all of whom understand that the stakes of this attorney general race are not merely at the local or state level, but that the state of Texas attorney general, who presides over the largest red state law firm in the country, has significant national impact. And the question for voters is the next attorney general going to be able to effectively, zealously, energetically, and effectively advance the America First law and order agenda here in the Lone Star State? And there's only one person in this race only one, with the kind of record necessary to give voters a confidence that I'm the guy to be able to keep his foot on the gas, to continue on the fights that Attorney General Paxton has started. And frankly, he's at a 10. I'm going to do my best to turn it up to 11. And so that's why I'm running. The stakes are critical, regardless of what happens with any of these candidates' futures. You mentioned it's a launching pad. I can't wait to be the Attorney General to advance law and order and justice here in Texas. That's why I'm running, and that's why I want to earn voter support.
Aaron, when I was running for office, for city council, I had no trouble, but running for mayor, I had a great frustration that money guys would say, hey, we think you'd make the best mayor in the field, but we don't think you can get there. And my argument was always, I could get there if y'all would give money and help me get there, but you've decided I can't win, which means you've handed the race over to other people to determine who the winner will be. I don't like to focus exclusively on who has a lead or more money or things like that, but I do want to take a moment of that. How do you get there? You've got candidates that are going to have more money. You have candidates that have more name ID. How do you get there?
Yeah, look, I think I like your anecdote. I've heard that before, but I'll just respectfully, Michael, disagree with a couple of your premises there. There's only one candidate in this race who clearly has significantly more money than anybody, and it's May's middleweight. And it's not even his money; it's his inherited money. And so I'm all for family legacies, but money is only going to get so far.
Wait, you know what you did? I'll bite.
What did I do?
Did you really just say May's middleweight? Did you just do that?
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's pronounced May's middleweight, actually. And if you don't prefer to use the last name, it's just Mays with an exclamation point like Jeb in 2016.
Let me tell you something. I can't use the P word like I want to. So if there's one thing I can't stand, it's a wuss. So I will use wuss. But the fact that you're going to come out swinging like this, yes, I'm all in. I'm here for this. This is. Let me tell you something, and I would say this to any of the candidates: if you're going to be the Attorney General, and this is what makes Paxton who he is, you better be ready to bloody some noses. So, all right, go ahead with your May's middleweight. All right.
May's middleweight has never been in a fight in his life. He's not spent any time in a lawfare environment. I understand that he's backed some good bills, but again, remember, this isn't a legislative job. The Texas Constitution under Article 4, Section 22, you know this, Michael, as an esteemed lawyer yourself, says that the Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas. This is a legal, executive branch law enforcement job.
We have all your formal wear needs, from morning suits to coordinating accessories.
Aaron Reitz is running to replace John Cornyn as the Attorney General of Texas. Cornyn, of course, running to replace Ken Paxton as Attorney General. Paxton running against John Cornyn, and it looks like today Wesley Hunt will get into that three-way primary for the U.S. Senate. The Attorney General seat in the state of Texas is incredibly important. Aaron Reitz is a candidate in that race, a candidate who, as of last week, I believe, was endorsed by Ken Paxton himself. Aaron, I had to cut you off because we went to break, but you were kind of setting the field of what people could expect. Obviously, Chip Roy, President Trump doesn't seem to like him one bit. Ted Cruz really likes him. He does start with some name ID, and people are going to be looking at that part of the race. What would you say?
Yeah, look, I think where we kind of left it is just there are two things. There's the name ID and then there's the money piece. And so, on the one hand, with the money piece, there's only one person in the race who inherited a boatload of family oil and gas money, and it's May's middleweight. He'll always have more money than everyone else in the race. But remember, when I launched in mid-June, and I only had 2 weeks to raise money in the second quarter, in 2 weeks as a non-incumbent, non-office holder, first time statewide, no gavel, no title, no nothing, from 250 individual donors, I raised $2.15 million in 2 weeks, and we're only climbing from there. And that's not just record-breaking, it's record-setting. That kind of fundraising momentum has literally never been done in modern Texas politics. And the reason for that is people are actually fired up about this race. People are not fired up about May's middleweight. They're not fired up about Joan Huffman. And there's a fringy, never-Trumper, anti-MAGA, anti-Paxton wing of the party that's fired up about Chip Roy. But the base of our party is MAGA, America First, pro-Trump, pro-Paxton, and they are deeply, deeply anti-Chip Roy. And so, look, my money is extremely competitive. I do not agree that I'm starting from some sort of money deficit. We're raising an unbelievable amount of money. And sure, Mays will continue to spend more money, but we've seen elected officials in this state spend, just dump exorbitant amounts of money. And it's a factor, but it's not the only thing. You got to have more than just money. And sadly, Mays middleweight doesn't really have anything other than his inherited wealth. Joan, we don't know what's going on with Joan. I think someone ought to call, do a wellness check on her. I don't know if she's campaigning. I really don't know what she's doing. But on the name ID, the only thing that I would, the only point that I would, maybe totally agree with you on is, Chip Roy is starting with higher name ID than everybody. But if you look at my polling or really any public polling that's been done on this question, it's overwhelmingly negative. Now, look, I'm in Houston right now. I know you're based in Houston. It is true that in Houston and the Gulf Coast that Mays and Jones' name ID is higher than mine, but it's not statewide. And the polling reflects that. Me, Joan, and Mays are about equal right now in September of 2025 on name ID. State senators often have a tendency to overestimate how well known they are statewide. And so, look, I've spent the past decade traveling the state, first with Paxton and then with Cruz, building a grassroots network in every corner of the state, which gives me a tremendous infrastructure advantage over the two state senators who may be better known in this particular region, but they're not known anywhere else in the state. So here's what's happening, Michael, in this race. This race is a Reitz versus Roy battle. Joan and Mays are nice people. I think, have serviceable legislative records. I might prefer one over the other. I might give more props to one over the other. But again, as I said, I think before we cut to the break, this isn't a legislative job. I think they're nice people. They're applying for the wrong job. Neither Mays nor Joan, and Chip included, are manifestly unqualified for this position, grossly so. And Texans really haven't had to think about the qualifications for office for the AG in over a decade. Article 4, Section 22 of the Texas Constitution says the Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas. It is a legal, executive branch law enforcement job. And there is only one person in this race with relevant and recent experience engaging in the kind of lawfare combat, litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all the major issues that your listeners and Republican primary voters more generally care about. And that's what sets my record apart from these people. But the reason why it's a Reitz versus Roy battle is because neither Mays nor Joan are really getting any traction. I think that people realize there's no energy. It's kind of just spiraling and not getting any forward momentum. We don't see any campaigning. We don't see a lot of radio. We see no TV media. We see no podcasts. We don't know what they're doing. I think it's because they're trying to punch above their weight. But Roy comes in with the advantage of high name ID. And look, he's been a fighter, but he's kind of like, I analogize Roy to this. Roy is like an attack dog, but with rabies, right? In other words, he's lost his freaking mind. He goes to war against everybody. He's been fired from virtually every single job he's ever held, including the United States Congress, in which he's basically persona non grata among both his peers and the Trump administration. It wasn't as though the Trump administration just had quibbles with him back in January of 2021. President Trump, as recently as December of 2024, was saying that Chip Roy was a do-nothing egomaniac who should be primaried. And so MAGA world, Trump world, America First world, Paxton world, they know who Chip Roy is. They know who Chip Soy is, or Flip Roy, whatever you want to call him. This is a guy who is deeply anti-MAGA and anti-Trump, and I think that will reflect in the polls. But Reitz versus Roy reflects it is a proxy battle over the broader war of the future of the heart and soul of our party. Is it America First? Is it MAGA? Does President Trump represent a lasting, durable realignment in our party back to America First principles? That's what I represent. That's the flag that I carry. Or does it go back to sort of GOP Inc., business as usual, bumper sticker talking points, from the 80s that no longer apply to the fights that we're in today. Well, that's Chip Roy. And I think voters know that. I think the president knows this. I think this administration knows it. And I think that's going to reflect in the polls. Chip's got enough has high name ID, but it's overwhelmingly negative, Michael. And so this is why I say I love the field, because I've got all the momentum in the world. I've got incredible endorsements that are coming out. It was Ken Paxton a couple weeks ago who said, he didn't mince words in his endorsement statement, by the way. He didn't say, oh, there's many good people in the field and, on the margins, I stand with Aaron. But at the end of the day, Texans will be well served by any of the champions that are running. No, he made it very clear. He said explicitly, Aaron Reitz is the only qualified candidate in this race. And I think voters will get to know that.
Aaron Reitz is our guest. He's running for Attorney General of Texas to replace Ken Paxton, who has endorsed him. More with him coming up.
You are listening to The Michael Berry Show.
Aaron Reitz is a candidate for Attorney General to replace Ken Paxton, who, of course, is running against John Cornyn. Paxton has endorsed Aaron Reitz. Ted Cruz has endorsed Chip Roy. There are also Mays Middleton and Joan Huffman in the race, but I would actually agree at this point with Aaron Reitz, and I don't see that changing, that this is a two-person race between Reitz and Roy. I think Joan Huffman has a solid history. Obviously, she won that state Senate race when most people didn't think she could. And Mays Middleton has money, and that gets people's attention. But a lot of folks that are impressed with having some money to start don't understand the grassroots Republican primaries. This is a very, very different type of race than you're used to come November, and you can't simply plop down a lot of money. Grassroots people are very opinionated, and there will be lots of coffees and teas in living rooms, and it will be mostly women, and they will determine who wins and loses this race. And they don't. I look back to David Dewhurst and having busted my butt for Ted Cruz in 2012 and having to overcome Dewhurst's money, is he was running an aerial campaign and we were running a grassroots campaign, and the grassroots will always win. Aaron, let's talk about your connection to the grassroots and how you win this race.
Yeah, look, I think that what you and I both know this, that the grassroots in Texas is energetically aligned with President Donald Trump. They are MAGA, they are America first, and they are fired up about that. And this is exactly why my message is resonating with the grassroots in every corner of this state. It's because I'm the only guy in the race who's been fully vetted, tested, and hand-selected by the president himself to have served in a very senior executive legal lawyer role, most recently in the Justice Department. And not just that, he specifically called me a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution, and then went on to praise specifically the work that I did when I was Attorney General Ken Paxton's deputy, litigating against the Biden administration and the forces of the left as they manifest themselves in big tech, big pharma, K through 12 education, higher education, election integrity, and so forth. And so the grassroots know, they have an intuitive sense that even though the grassroots is excited about Paxton moving on to the United States Senate to represent the Lone Star State better in Washington, they had some concerns. This is what I've felt this for many, many months. They have concerns about, well, gosh, Ken, we're excited for you to run for Senate, but who in the world can competently take the keys to this high horsepower vehicle, handle its incredible capabilities without driving it into the ditch while keeping his foot on the gas? And so as voters are looking at the field, they know that Mays Middleton is a nice guy, but he certainly can't do it. He's not a fighter. He's not a warrior. He's never been punched in the mouth before. He's never been engaged in legal combat or lawfare. They know that until recently, nobody knew that he was even a lawyer. Joan Huffman, they know that she's just kind of a swamp creature who wields her gavel to advance her own personal interests as Senate Finance Chairman, has a very liberal voting record, and really hasn't been a lawyer in 20 years. I mean, look, I'll give Joan some credit. At least she was a lawyer several decades ago. Mays, on the other hand, has never practiced. And they look at Roy, and they find his never Trumpism odious. They find it offensive. They find it disqualifying for the moment that we're in right now. And so the grassroots want a MAGA fighter. They want what President Trump said about me, which is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution, with somebody who's got a record litigating, investigating, suing, defending, and appealing on all the major issues that Texans care about in a lawfare legal combat environment. My opponents are all legislators. They're going to say, well, I've got this bill and that bill, and I've sponsored this thing, and I voted for this and against that, and look at my record. I say, great. Are you guys applying for a legislative position, or are you applying for the state's top legal position? Because if you're applying for the state's top legal position, I'm sorry, those records are some indication, but they're not qualifying for the position. In fact, had any of my opponents applied for even an entry-level legal position at the United States Justice Department under Trump or the Office of the Attorney General of Texas under Paxton, they wouldn't have even gotten a screener interview, either because they don't have the ideological or philosophical commitments that are needed for the time in which we're in right now, or they don't have the relevant experience to do even low-level or middle management. And yet my opponents presume to want to preside over the largest red state law firm in the country? I don't think so. You don't get to become the head coach of the most impressive football team in the country if you've never even played freshman B team ball. It's just not possible, and the voters are going to reject it. Now, look, I've spent the past several years with Paxton in the 2022 statewide cycle and Cruz in the 24 cycle, traveling to every single corner of the state. I've built a statewide infrastructure in every major region, from the Panhandle down to the Valley, West Texas to deep East Texas, all the way to Orange and where you're from, Michael, to the major metropolitan areas. I've got grassroots coverage in every corner of the state, and people are fired up. You feel it intuitively. You look at the momentum. You look at the media presence. You look at the social media following. You look at the fundraising, and voters know, the grassroots know, the AG, we cannot turn the keys over the AG's office over to somebody who needs training wheels. And my three opponents don't have the slightest idea what they are doing. It is all well and good, and I know this as a Marine officer, somebody who went to Afghanistan. It's all well and good to talk a big game about, oh, I'm courageous. I'm going to be a hero on the battlefield. I'm going to do great things. I'm going to lead my men to victory. Wait until you hear the bullets start to fly. Wait until one of your buddies gets injured. Wait until you're starting to get overrun. Wait until you have to confront the enemy face on. And then all of a sudden, that's when your character is tested. That's when your mettle is tested. And right now, out of a four-way race, there is only one candidate who has actually been in legal combat, doing the legal fights that matter most on behalf of the state of Texas and to Texans. And it's me. My other three opponents, regardless of what you think about their legislative records, it doesn't matter. This isn't a super legislative position. It's the state's top legal law enforcement executive branch role. And voters know this. Our voters, Michael, you know this. The grassroots are smart. They are discerning. They ask the right questions. And they align themselves with people that they fully trust in. And they know that if I was good enough for President Trump, if I was good enough for the president to say Aaron Reitz is a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution, then that's the guy that they're going to align with. That's the one who they're going to vote for. That's the one they're going to text their friends about. That's the one that they're going to donate their hard-earned money to. And it's not my opponents. And I will tell your listeners hearing my voice for the first time, I will tell you this, the stakes are way, way too high to give this position to somebody who is not absolutely ready and battle-hardened for the fight that's ahead of us. Do not take your chances with somebody who's never done this before. Don't take your chances with somebody who's just making a play to climb to the next rung, or somebody who's just running because it increases their statewide name ID and allows them to raise more money, or who is failing upwards because their path has been blocked at every turn.
Hold right
Don't
there.
allow it. Vote for somebody who's battle-tested.
Aaron Reitz is running for Texas Attorney General. We'll continue our conversation with him coming up. Aaron Reitz is our guest, spelled R-E-I-T-Z. He is running to replace John. Damn it. He is running to replace Ken Paxton, who is running against John Cornyn in the U.S. Senate race, a race that saw a third entrant today, or will be seeing, and that is Wesley Hunt, congressman from the 38th Congressional District, which, of course, will pop open his congressional seat, and there will be a race for that. So Hunt in against Cornyn and Paxton. Paxton leaving the AG's race means that Aaron Reitz has entered that race, along with Chip Roy, Mays Middleton, and Joan Huffman. Aaron Reitz, take a moment, if you would, and I'm going to time you. Take 2 minutes to explain to folks what the Attorney General's office actually does and why it's so important.
Yeah, great question. So Article 4, Section 22 of the Texas Constitution says, quote, "The Attorney General shall represent the state of Texas in all courts and pleas." This is a legal, executive branch law enforcement job. The Attorney General is the state of Texas when it comes to legal fights. That means that on behalf of the state of Texas, the Attorney General may go on offense as a plaintiff. It means the Attorney General may be in a defensive position as a defendant when other entities come after the state. And it also means that the Attorney General can launch investigations consistent with state law to discern whether, pull at legal threads to discern whether or not state law or federal law within the jurisdiction of the state of Texas is being violated. The powers that inhere in the Attorney General, both constitutional and statutory, are vast. I want your listeners to think of the Attorney General as someone who presides over one of the most robust legal armories that one can imagine. It is a legal armory. The legislature stocks the armory full of weapons. Then the Attorney General, however, must go into that armory and, depending on the enemy of the day, select the appropriate weapon to go after that enemy. So one day, you may have an enemy that requires a belt-fed machine gun with a tripod. Then another day, it may just require a Bowie knife to slip in under the ribs of the enemy and take them out and walk away. Another day, there may be an enemy that's so overwhelming, the Attorney General needs superior air cover and can call in help from the Trump administration. And then there are other days where the enemy is coming and we need to bring out defensive weapons. And so that's how I want folks to think about the Attorney General. Who is ready to engage in legal combat in a lawfare environment, who has handled these weapons, who is battle-tested, who has sustained scars, to competently and effectively and energetically fight the enemies of liberty, the enemies of Texas, and the enemies of the Constitution. And out of the four people in this race, there is only one person who has that credible experience, and it's me.
Aaron Reitz, which is spelled R-E-I-T-Z, is our guest. We're talking about his bid to be the next Attorney General. When we talk about the nuts and bolts of the campaign, obviously Ken Paxton came out and endorsed you. Ted Cruz endorsed Chip Roy. The expectation has been, with your experience with President Trump, the expectation is that President Trump will endorse you. How confident do you feel that he will do that publicly?
So I want to be very clear. When I left the Trump administration, it was after 2 months plus of very careful and thoughtful and deliberate due diligence with my superiors and colleagues in the West Wing and at the Justice Department. And only after receiving the full blessing of everyone that helped to get me into the Justice Department did I make the ultimate decision to jump into this race. Why did I get that permission? Because the Trump administration understands that this position, the Texas Attorney General, is not just some backwater state office for somebody who wants to climb the rungs. It is mission essential nationally to advance the America First and MAGA law and order agenda. It's why, when I announced, I got 20 different public statements from the Attorney General of the United States, the Deputy Attorney General, FBI Director, Border Czar, and so on and so forth. All this is publicly available out on social media, saying, look, Aaron is the guy for the job, and he's going to make America safe again back in his home state of Texas. Now, the question of the complete and total endorsement is a separate conversation. We stand ideally positioned to earn the president's complete and total endorsement. That is something that we are in constant communication with this administration on, but it's early, and the president wants his people to show that they can jump out of the nest and fly on their own. And I think by any metric, whether it's fundraising or social media or media appearances, ability on the stump and on the trail, endorsements, et cetera, I think that President Trump and his team know that they've got not only somebody who's been fully vetted by them, somebody who's already been declared by the president himself to be a true MAGA attorney and a warrior for the Constitution, but somebody who that the president can confidently endorse at the right time when it makes the most sense and when it has the biggest impact. And so I think that I stand ideally positioned to earn it. I want to earn it. And what I would communicate to President Trump, if he were listening to your show, is, sir, you will have no better ally, no better partner in advancing your law and order agenda right here in the Lone Star State in a way that has national impact. And by the way, I think voters know this as well, and it's why they are rallying to my flag and they're not rallying to my opponent's flags.
Aaron Reitz is our guest. His last name, since a number of you have asked, is spelled Reitz. A number of Trump officials endorsing you. The expectation that I hear from the rumor mills into which I tap suggests that Trump will endorse you at the appropriate time to give maximum value to that. The Cruz endorsement for Chip Roy came out really early. I think with an intention of trying to show there's going to be some grassroots support. Everything that was intended to do. Ken Paxton coming out and saying, hey, he's the guy for my job. I've done my job well. You love me. He'll do a good job. I think this and the U.S. Senate race are going to be the two marquee races that are going to get all the attention over the next few months. But I think it's safe to say, and you've alluded to this, that this is going to be one of the angles of this race is going to be the sort of Cruz-Roy wing of what were once never Trumpers against the Trump world and their influence in an internal race in Texas, with you representing the Trump side. And I think we're going to see a lot of that play out because you take the Cornyn institutional side and you take sort of more the not exactly Groypers or to that extent, but the never Trump wing over here. And I think that's going to be Chip Roy's folks. And then the Trump world folks, which obviously are already with you, and he's expected to be you. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that you've got the battle lines right. I mean, look, Chip Roy Chip Roy is the guy who hates President Trump so much that he went out of his way. He was the first elected official in Congress to recruit Ron DeSantis to oppose President Trump for the 24 presidential cycle, and then traveled around the country with the other loathsome never-Trumper, Thomas Massie. It was Chip Roy, Thomas Massie, and Ron DeSantis buddying up, traveling the country to oppose President Trump for months. And how many counties did they win? 0. That's because Chip Roy is on the wrong side of this fight. The president knows it. His teams know it. His team knows it. And the grassroots knows it. I'm very clear. I'm with the president. I'm with Paxton. I'm the MAGA attorney general candidate in this race. And I think that folks are going to come and rally around our flag.
That is Aaron Reitz, spelled Reitz.